Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Blaze TV podcast. Ed Kimberley and Stu Coles, as always, and joining us as our special guest this week, half of the signing announcement from the weekend, returning Blaze forward, David Broll. David, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for doing this, man, and taking some time out from sunny Toronto.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I have lots of time on my hands right now, so it's actually probably the busiest thing I'm doing today. So it's good to see you guys as well.
It's all good. It's all good. You just got back from the track, right? Running some sprints,
Yeah,
getting in shape already.
trying to get in shape already. Got nothing else to do, so I've been working out a little bit, trying to get the body back for whenever the season's going to start up. Hopefully on time, but if it's delayed a little bit, then just trying to get my body ready and back in shape a little bit.
I guess when it's lockdown, it's easy to get into bad habits, right? Pizza and Xbox.
Yeah. I gave myself a couple weeks there, and then obviously once we found out the season was done, I was still in Coventry for a week with having a few more pops than people usually would and stuff. So now it's time to kind of start taking care of the body again, right? Especially when there's nothing going on. So it's a good time to take care of yourself.
Yeah, I think we all feel like we were denied one big party a couple of weeks short, but I'm sure we'll come on to that later. But I want to dial it back. I want to go right back to the beginning because do you remember when we announced the team on the ice with all the fans in the Skydome? Yeah, we came out the Big Blue Dragon and stuff. And I threw the mic in front of your face and I said, "Hey, why have you come to Coventry?" And I will never forget this because you just turned around without missing a beat and just went, "No one else wanted me." I thought that was so funny. But come on, man. Why did you choose to come to Europe then? I mean, was it to do with the vet system? What appealed to Cov?
So what people sometimes don't know in the American Hockey League is after you played a certain amount of games, there's a veteran status, right? So, and there's a tweener, which is 260 to 300 games, I think, or 320. And I was in that category now. So you're only allowed 5 or 6 guys per team on when you've played that many games. So it's usually those high-end goal-scoring guys or a goalie or a stud defenseman. So once you kind of creep closer to those games, you kind of realize that you got to look at other options. So I kind of knew that a year or two before that. And then I was just trying to look at my options for next season. I reached out to a lot of the English teams, and then I got in touch with a bunch of them, and then came to terms with Stewie. I actually messaged him on LinkedIn.
Oh my gosh!
I look back actually from like 2 years ago. He messaged me and asked me like if I'm interested in coming to England. And I iced him. I didn't say anything. And then 2 years later, I'm begging him for a job. So I talked to a few teams, had a couple offers and stuff, but for me, I kind of want to get back into playing some bigger minutes and having more of a role rather than just a fourth line role that I did in North America. So. I was doing my own negotiations. I was my own agent. Pretty simple. And then the opportunity came that he offered me a contract, and then that was it. I signed it then, and the rest is history.
And the league's been doing so well, right? You look at the national team, defying the odds over the last few years to get to the top pool, overtaking, I guess, leagues like France, for instance. The French league's usually highly regarded. GB, as we know, knocked them down to the second tier. So, I mean, the reputation of the league had to have something to do with it, right? And a lot of guys come straight out. They hit the vet system. They go Norway, maybe, Sweden, places like that.
Yeah, guys, different style of play. I didn't have the sexy stats, you'd call it, the big goals, assists. So for me to go to I guess you would call a higher league, better paying league, it's tough for a guy that only had maybe 8 to 10 points in the American Hockey League rather than a guy that has 30 or 40 points in the American Hockey League, right? So I only was kind of, even though I had a kind of a decent resume, I guess the leagues that I can choose were kind of I played. So I knew England was going to be an option for me. I was looking over Slovakia as well. I've talked to a bunch of guys that played over in England, and they loved it, right? And so 3/4 of the team's North American guys for the most part. So it's an easy transition. The language is easy. Everyone speaks English. You go sometimes to one of these other countries and trying to order a drink or go to a restaurant, no one knows what you're saying, right? So, so for that, the lifestyle aspect was a big part of me coming over.
And I guess Danny did a really good job of selling the city to you as well. You, the kind of guy you are, the kind of way you play the game. I'm sure there are a lot of teams in this league that wanted you.
Yeah, he was honest from the start. He was honest, and he said, "This is what's going to happen. Like, we don't have the big budget like the Cardiffs, Nottinghams, other teams." He was honest. He goes, "This is where we're kind of stand. This is kind of what we're what we're dealt with." Sorry. So, no, you know what? For a team that's, I guess, medium budget or lower end budget, like, we got treated really good, and
Mm.
I was surprised. I know they had some housing stuff in the past, but this year they just kind of wiped that all clean, got guys good places. Our house was unbelievable.
Mm.
I was shocked when I put in my car in the driveway. I was like, this is where I'm living all year. It was great. So I think they're trying to do a complete 360 on how they're taking care of the players. It's just like, it's a recruiting tool as well, right? If you know you're going to live in a nice place all year round rather than like a small shoebox, and it's, the lifestyle is going to be better. You're going to enjoy playing that for that city, right? So that's where I'm very happy of what happened this year for sure.
It's funny that you mentioned that. It's like the little things. I don't know if I've told you about this. I was talking to Yanni right at the beginning of the year. We were in the casino, and I said, "How are you settling in?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's great. They gave me a car." I was like, "What?" He was like, "Yeah, they gave me a car. Nowhere else has given me a car before." And I was thinking, well, this is, yeah. I mean, the guy played 500 games in the Finnish Elite League, and then bounced around a little bit. No one had ever given him a car. That's crazy.
Yeah. I find that weird. I feel like most countries do, but maybe I don't know where the heck he's been playing everywhere. So maybe some of those teams just couldn't afford giving cars. I don't know. They're like, you want more money or a car? He's probably taking more money. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we'll talk about the season a lot, but the signing's just been announced with Evan. I know he's on the West Coast there, on a little time difference, so we can do this with you on an East Coast boy. But why year two? I mean, I guess a lot of it had to do with unfinished business, and you guys just seem to have like a hell of a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate, and I feel bad for the owners and Stewie as well because the last couple of years they've clawed at it for playoff spots in 7th, 8th, 9th place, and then to be a coach and to see that success and to know that all your recruiting is paid off and it's kind of coming in with a light at the end of the tunnel, at least you can say that it's tough for a coach. It's tough for a player, obviously, but I think Stewie and the owners probably took it harder just because like they knew kind of where they were for 2-3 years, and then boom, all of a sudden we're in 2nd place a year later, full new team. Obviously with Mater coming over helps everything, but I think we had a good team right from the start. It was just kind of getting clicking, and it's tough when there's 16, 17 new players, right? So, that's that, man.
That's the nature of the beast, though, right? But for you, you were talking about wanting to come out of the American League where you may be playing bottom 6 straight into top 6. And you look like you were thriving in that environment. You bumped up and down that top 6 a little bit, playing on top unit, 2nd unit. When Feds and Andy and Yanni found that chemistry, I mean, they were going to stick that together. But from there, you just kind of went wherever you were needed and seemed to be able to do whatever was asked of you. You know what's funny? I sent this to Stu and Craig earlier. Did you see the Bissonnette clip? He's talking to John Scott about what it takes to make. Yeah, they're talking about what it takes to make it to that next level. I mean, they're talking about guys in the American League going up to the show, and it's just guys that get out of their comfort zone. And you seem like you could just do anything that was thrown your way. PK, power play, didn't matter.
Yeah, you know what? I think I've been in a lot of situations. I've been a healthy scratch for 15 games in a row. Oof. I've got a chance to be on a 2nd power play unit in the American League. I've got a chance to get called up. I've kind of been all sorts of situations, and I've learned over the years how to kind of handle the wave, I guess you can call it. Some of the guys that are coming into our team last year, they're first-year pro guys. We had a lot of guys that are first-year pros. So if they're not playing as much, sometimes maybe, who knows, they get a little sour. But for me, it's like if my ice time gets scaled back or if I play more, I'm just kind of the same because I know, like, that's just the way it goes. Like some weeks you'll play more, some weeks you'll play less. Guys get injured, next thing you know, you're on the power play. So I just think it comes down a little bit of experience of how I kind of can handle the situation. I talked to Stewie last 20 games this season because I wasn't on the power play when I came back from suspension. I was like, Stewie, I'm not going to sit here and be bitter. Like, V and those guys are doing an unreal job on the power play. They should be on the power play. But if someone goes down, I'll be ready kind of thing, right? So at that time of year, you just got to buy in because you saw the team success, right? Like, I don't care if I get more points and our team's losing. Like, that's just not – like, some guys might, but I'm never a point guy, right? Like I like to obviously scoring stuff, but I've never kind of built my game off, if I don't get a goal this weekend, I play like crap, right? So that's kind of the way I went about it.
You're on course for 20 goals. Don't do yourself down, man. I know you had some injuries and some suspensions and whatever, but it's a little bit different, right? There's no East Coast Hockey League here. You can't just call a guy up who's, ripping it. There's no real filter to the Elite League. There's no natural filter up
there. Yeah, that's the big thing is, right, that's when you get those bigger budget teams. They have 4 lines or even extra guys that aren't even playing. Sometimes I think we played with 7 or 8 forwards, and Forbes, he was on D for their 4th or 5th D. And you got other teams, some of the big teams they got 2 guys in the stands. They come down, they play 4 lines. But hey, if you want to play more, there you go. 2 injuries happen, you're going from 10, 15 minutes tonight to 20 minutes. So at the end of the day, you want to play as much as you can. So there should be no excuses when it comes to guys kind of going down. You get an opportunity to play, right?
Yeah, for sure. And did you get briefed about how crazy the Sky Dome go for rugged guys who play the way you do? I mean, as soon as you slap that first guy into the boards and you hear that roar, that must have been like, oh, okay, they like it too. That's good.
Yeah, for me, it was great. Even in preseason, the fans are going nuts. I like the small arena, to be honest with you, because I feel like the fans are right there, and it's easier to get up for a game. Sometimes those bigger arenas, it gets a little kind of sleepy, I guess you can say. So for me, I've always loved small rinks, especially the kind of the style I play, and a little bit more physical. And it's just great to kind of for the fans to be right on top of you for myself.
Oh, man. Stu, do you want to pick up?
Yeah, I guess that's draws us in. How different is it playing in the UK? We don't have the big arenas, even the Nottinghams, the Sheffields, etc. That's not the scale of the big arenas that you'd have over in North America.
You know what? Nottingham, Belfast, who else has a big rink? Sheffield. Mm-hmm. Those are big American Hockey League rinks as well. Not every rink in the American Hockey League is big. Some hold 4,000 or 5,000. Some hold 10, obviously. But the fans are a little different. The fans over there, if you go to the United States, maybe hockey's not that big, and people are just kind of going to go. But I feel like Coventry, it's that's kind of what they have, the sporting around there. Obviously, they have the rugby and the footy and stuff. So, but sometimes we don't always interchange with their schedules. But we have our Sunday home games, and they're usually good crowds, and people get into it. People want to see the old school, kind of rough stuff. So I know it's dying down a lot. It's more just kind of having a bigger guy as a presence now. But I'm sure they liked hockey a couple of years back, and obviously so did I. But yeah, that's just the way the direction it's going right now.
The other, probably the big difference is, how important the league is over here in comparison to the playoffs. Because for every other league in the world, the playoffs is the big thing, and it's the tournament, it's the trophy you want to win. Whereas here in the UK, the focus is on the league. How difficult is that to shift your mindset coming over for the first year?
Yeah, it's weird. Obviously, we're not used to it, but because usually back home or where I am, it's you come 4th or 8th, you still have a chance of winning playoffs. But that's kind of I like it because it shows the team who's most consistent throughout the year. You're playing each team 6 times. You're not just having a one-off or 2 games. So next thing you know, the best team has a bad weekend, but they only lost 5 games the whole year. So I get why they do it. It's a little more consistent throughout the whole season. I kind of like the playoff format. 2 weeks, you kind of know when it's done. Sometimes over here, you can go 2.5 months and be in playoffs all the way to the finals. So for here, it's just kind of 2 weeks. And it's better hockey because guys know there's only 4 games you can play. So for that, I actually like it. But yeah, when you have to win the league, it kind of gives away from the team that maybe comes 7th or 8th to win the whole thing to go to the Champions League, right? So I understand both sides.
Yeah. So from the league perspective and the playoffs, those 4 games, they're pretty intense hockey though. Is that you sad that you missed out this year in not actually getting to play those games? Yeah,
for sure. And I know the intensity would have picked up a ton for sure, and especially in our rink. We would have been hitting teams like crazy. I would have been 20 hits a game for sure. It's just because you're playing for once the season's settled and all the standings, now you're playing to win the playoffs. And as you said, you have 4 games, so you go 100% for 4 games, and you see the hockey go from here to here. And each little mistake is it could make or break your team, right? So I was definitely excited. We didn't know who we were going to play, obviously, because of standings. We had a couple ideas, but I figured whoever we were going to play, it was going to be a bloodbath. Like anyone, it's a coin toss of who can win any of those playoff games. So, but yeah, I'm definitely disappointed.
But you must have, I mean, regardless of what team ended up playing in the playoffs, you must have fancied your chances, given the run that the team was on coming from sort of Christmas onwards.
Yeah, I don't think there was any team that had our number. Like, I know we had a couple losses to Cardiff, but those are like 1 goal or overtime or shootout games. Like, that's obviously the best team in the league. Like, it's fair to say, like, not saying we can't beat them, because we definitely had a chance to beat them, but they were probably the best overall depth team in the league. And we're going toe to toe with them every single game. And we got them early with a couple Challenge Cup games as well. And the games we lost on the stretch, as I said, 1 goal games, overtime, or shootout losses. Like, 1 or 2 game off, like, that's little mistakes, right? So, yeah, anyone could have beat anyone, and we wouldn't have counted ourselves out against anyone for sure.
Because there was that game where CJ shut out Cardiff in Cardiff. Nobody does that.
No. And I was actually at home, and I was like, whoa, did this just happen? I'm like, then I texted Drew. Obviously, Drew played there the season before. I'm like, does that ever happen in Cardiff? He goes, I couldn't tell you last time they got shut out at home. Like, and that's a statement saying, like, we could beat these guys. You know what I mean? So, yeah, as I said, this league was kind of wide open, I think, for who could have won the title.
I think it was about the first time in 3 or 4 years when that happened, the shutout in Cardiff.
Yeah.
So it really is a rare event.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, it goes to show you kind of like for a team that's considered a lower budget, the kind of guys we had in that room, missing a few players to go in there and win 6-0, like to a fully loaded team that maybe had 1 injury. So shows a lot.
Yeah. But maybe for you personally, this was a turbulent year on a sort of personal level. You picked up some injuries, some suspensions. Your father sadly passed away.
Yeah.
How tough was that being away from home and experiencing all of that at the same time?
Yeah, that was the hardest thing I've had to go through. I mean, nothing tops that, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I had the injury for a little while. I was slated to come back. So then I found out the passing of my father. Went home for, I think it was 2 weeks. Came back, and then I was suspended the first game out. So there was about six weeks or something that I kind of wasn't really skating. I would do a few workouts. So I think for myself, things were going good up until the injury point. And then being away from the game for 6 weeks is tough, right? To get back into the groove. And that's when it kind of came back. Other guys were getting chances to play, which they should. And guys were doing good. And I kind of came back into a little bit of a different role once I came back. And that's why I go back when I talk to Stu. I was like, Stu, I'm not going to sit here and whine about not being back in the power play after me not playing for 6 weeks. You know what I mean? But yeah, all in all, it was a tough through the injuries, through when I had to come home from my dad. Lots of support from family, lots of support from the Coventry Blaze. It's an eye opener. It really is, and you take life for granted. And a lot of people say it, but it was definitely an eye opener for me. And just having every day, and just being able to go for a walk, go for a drive, you take for granted. So it was tough couple weeks there for me, and still obviously I think about my dad every single day. But just trying to get better and move on. Not move on, but just kind of get better every week here.
So that first goal after your return that you scored, how important was that to you personally? Because I think you were pointing up to the sky after it went in. So
yeah, it wasn't the best goal because there wasn't a goalie in that. my dad's brother, my uncle, he's like, "Hey, how'd the goal go?" I was like, "Yeah, I went 5-hole." He goes, "Nice." Like, was it a deke? I go, "No, there wasn't a goalie in that, but if he was, it was 5-hole." So no, that was special. And then got a lot of hugs and stuff from the guys afterwards. And you know what I mean? I said in my speech when I was at the funeral that I'm gonna get a goal for you. And yeah, that meant a lot. And I know he's looking down. He was happy. He was smiling. So I wanted to show him a little bit of love.
Yeah. And you mentioned just a moment ago about how your role kind of changed during the season. Yeah. And you mentioned as well about how maybe your role as a player now isn't what it might have been sort of maybe 10, 15 years ago as hockey's sort of changed and evolved. When you hear people describe you as just a fighter, how does that make you feel as a sort of person? Because obviously there's some other facets to your game.
Yeah, well, just a fighter doesn't score 10 or 15 goals a year. He scores 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I used to play, you know what, I used to play a pretty heavy role back in the American League, and that was just the way it was. When I was my first 2 seasons, like, if I wasn't fighting or hitting, like, I was just getting healthy scratched. So then a year later, everything just stopped. Everything just switched. All the big guys in the NHL got sent down. I got sent down the East Coast. So it was just kind of a trickle-down effect. Now they're looking for the complete package, guys that can play, guys that can hit with a little bit of fighting. So I kind of came in, I feel like, at the wrong time. But at the same time, I'm also not fighting 20 times a year. Who knows what happens to your head or whatever. But my era was – I kind of witnessed a little bit of it for 2 years and then just kind of shut right down after that. So for me now is I get guys on the team know if I have to fight, I will. If I'm not going to just ask a guy just to ask a guy anymore, but if there's a dirty hit or guys taking advantage of players on our team, I'll be there. And the guys and the coaches know that. And I think that's what's transitioned now is guys are just kind of going about, they're playing hard, they're playing physical. Nothing says you can't hit a guy and just give him a few jabs and you're not tough because you didn't drop your gloves. So I think it's more of a security guard, I guess you can call it now, rather than the goon, right? So, I mean, people are going to call it what you want. If they want to call me a fighter, call me a fighter. If not, then who cares?
But here in the UK, I mean, with the roster size, particularly at the Blaze as well, there's no space for just a fighter, is there? Yeah. Everybody on the team's got to be able to play. From your top guy all the way down, everybody's got to have a standard. Yeah, and you look at next year, I think we're taking an import off the roster, I believe. So you're only going to have 3 lines of – I mean, your fourth line's not going to have as much depth as it used to, right? So, as you said, if you got a fighter in there that's playing on the third line and then he's getting injured, then you have – you know what I mean? You have 2 young guys stepping in as a third line, so the depth's not there. Teams will have tough guys, a big stay-at-home tough D. Hammer, he's a big guy, plays hard. Hammer fought once or twice this year, but he didn't need he just played so hard that that's all you need anymore, right? Like he would lay big hits, he would box guys out, and that's just having a big, steady defenseman like him. That's like the new kind of thing. Like even like Pellick on Belfast, same thing. He plays hard, he plays physical. He only fought once or twice, but it's more of a presence, right? And Hammond brought that for us as well. So did Hash. So I think that's where it is now. For sure. Ed?
Yeah. I was just going to pick that up because, I mean, you played in the Ontario League. We had a lot of guys come out. A couple of guys played in the Dub. A lot of guys came out of the NCAA as well. And the Ontario League used to be the Wild Wild West. There were a lot of big, heavy dudes that used to play there. But when you were coming up, when you went in first round, tough guys don't go first round in the Ontario League.
I couldn't fight at all. I went from like a complete 360 from Bantam to minor midges where you get drafted to the OHL. I turned into like a big guy that can play. And then once you go to the OHL, you got to prove your point a little bit. But yeah, I couldn't fight until about year 4. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I had to get a couple lessons from some older guys and stuff like that. I still did it just to kind of get some experience. But I guess everyone changed their role at some point. You see a lot of guys go first round in the NHL, become fourth line centerman. Yeah. So if you're not in that top 6 right away, then you kind of got to carve yourself out a role, and that's how you stay afloat, I guess.
That's exactly it, right? You hit the nail on the head. You know, everyone at some point who plays pro hockey has been a 50-goal scorer. You know, whether it's high school or wherever, but there's always going to be another 50-goal scorer who's next year, a 60-goal scorer or a 70-goal scorer. Yeah. So going first round, I mean, you must have been into the Ontario League. You must have been really proud of that. I mean, going into Barrie and then getting traded to the Sioux, those are 2 really, really good organizations. I mean, I think they were on the downswing. Correct me if I'm wrong then, but you know, they've won cups. Yeah. No, for me going, just, you know what, I was pumped. I didn't care. Some guys like, oh, I want to go here, I'm like, I didn't care. I'm 16 years old. I get to leave home for the first time, and then tell your parents. They're like, "What do you mean? You're just going to go away for 8 months?" Like, I was excited. So there is a lot of pressure as a high pick as anything. There's going to be a lot of pressure on guys that go NHL or guys get called up. There's always pressure everywhere, but I just embraced it. And then
I got traded to Sault Ste. Marie. I played 2.5 years there, and that's way up north in Ontario. If you guys kind of have to look it up on a map, but each trip was about 7 or 8 hours on a bus. Oof. So yeah, it was a little bit of a reality change once I went there. I was got a little bit homesick at the start. Then I was like, why am I homesick? I'm going to be home in the summer, so we're all good now.
Because that border's Michigan, right? There's literally the American side and the Canadian side.
Yeah, Sault, Michigan, right across the border.
Yeah. Big shout out to Jim Jorgensen, former Blaze defenseman, who lives in the Sault, the American side. Yeah.
Nice. There you go.
Talking to him about some of those retro games. But come back to you. And then you're a Toronto boy. You go 6th round of the Leafs. That must have been a dream come true, man.
Yeah, and that was, going back to talking about my dad, he was diehard. You know what I mean? He had blankets, those flags out your windows, like Leaf. And I was getting to the point, I was sick. I was like, Dad, like, I can't even watch a Leaf game with you anymore because it's crazy, right? Like, just diehard. So to share that with to go down to the draft, it was in Minnesota where the Wild play. We actually missed our flight, so we waited a whole 11 hours for the next flight. Anyways, I was waiting there for 6 hours to get drafted. So at this point, I'm like, oh, it's not going to happen. Like, it's the 6th round come around, and I saw the Leafs were still on the board. They had some interest. They picked me probably out of a hat, blindfolded, just to see who they get. So, but yeah, obviously being a Toronto boy, you see a lot of guys that are kind of local get drafted there. It's crazy. It's nuts. And then the amount of responses from family and friends you get, and everyone wants tickets. They think they're all free. You get called up for a game, they think you get 400 tickets for whoever wants to come. So I thought it'd be standoffish to a couple people, but that's just the way it is.
That's. I guess the per diem's better. That's the only thing you get.
That's for sure.
No, I've cut you. I think you've cut yourself a little bit short there, though, because you got a couple of cups of coffee in the American League when you were still in your 3rd and 4th years in the Ontario League, and they don't do that with guys unless they're serious about them.
Yeah. So I guess after my 3rd year, they called me up as a 18-year-old or 19-year-old, and then you go play against guys that are 30 years old.
Yeah.
Like, my first game I fought, obviously, and I was so nervous. Like, I don't even remember fighting. It was a good fight, but I don't even remember because I was just so nervous.
Who'd you fight? You remember?
Nope. Blacked out.
Yeah.
But I know my first game I fought right away. I'm like, told my dad, I just gotta get out of the way, get my first point. The point took a while, but the fight's an easy one off the list there. So, and then after that, you just kind of slowly eased in. And then once I came to my first year pro, I actually had my feet wet a little bit, so I was more comfortable going into a pro atmosphere, right?
Yeah. Is it less stress when you just get your feet wet for those first few games? You know you're going to more than likely go back to the O. Kind of the pressure's off a little bit because you're not expected to stick there next year. You can just kind of get a taste.
Yeah, no, it was good, and it's for sure it helps you. And then getting a couple paychecks, I was like, in the OHL, you don't get. I was getting like $88 every 2 weeks in the OHL, and then getting a couple $1,000 paycheck. I was like, this is pretty cool. You can do this for a living. They had me in a hotel downtown Toronto. It was like free breakfast and lunch. So I was like, I'm a 19-year-old kid living downtown playing for the hometown team. I was like, this sounds good. So I was there for like 2 or 3 months because the team went all the way to the finals, actually. So
oh, nice.
I was just soaking it all in when it came to like on the ice, working out, and even having some drinks with guys, right? So it was all good. Yeah, I was I didn't play the whole playoffs, and then so playoffs started in April. I didn't play the whole playoffs, and the coach tells me I'm playing game 4 of the finals, which was in middle of June. So I was like, like by that time I'm having more beers with the guys. I'm on patios. The weather's nice. These guys are playing. I'm not slated to play ever. And he goes, yeah, you're playing game 4. I was like, me? So that's crazy because you get to dial it right in. So that's where I go back to about the playoffs being long, right? In England, okay, let's dial it in for 2 weeks. There, it's 2.5 months if you go to the finals. So for a guy that's 19, I'm like, I'm not going to play. I'm just here as an extra body, a little experience. To go two whole months, kind of in summer mode, I guess you can call it. Yeah. And then just boom, you're playing. I was like, that was an eye opener too. Kind of how you always have to be ready at that level as well.
And then the next year, actually, I've cut you short on this a couple of times when we've done the commentary. You get those 5 games with the Leafs. I don't know much about those though. You got an apple. Were they spread out over a period of time, or did you get one big block?
So the first game I fought, obviously, I got to get the feet wet. That was another thing. I was kind of nervous. I was like, I'm fighting right away, and then asked a few guys. No guy said yes, and then one guy said, "Okay, let's do it." And then I was actually playing on the second line for a bit, which was crazy. I was playing with Nazem Kadri, and then another name was Joffrey Lupul. And then I think my second or third game at home versus Edmonton, I got an assist. And then I hit the post, an empty net post. So I could have had the goal, assist, and a fight all in that little span. But I know Kadri wasn't happy when I hit the post because he missed the assist, obviously. So I got dumped down to the fourth line, and then we lost that game, and then get packing. That's it. Back down to the minors. Yeah, that's all. It was crazy experience. I'll flying on a private jet, and then you know what I mean, I can go on stories and stories about that, but it's a good lifestyle.
It's fine with a warm up for when they get you on chicklets, man. So you can dive into that more.
Yeah. So.
Stu, pick up, man, if you want.
Yeah. So I mean, that's your first pro season. Like, you come out of the OHL and you get 60 plus games AHL, 5+ games NHL. That's a good stint for your first pro season.
Yeah, my first year, I played a weekend, 2 games with the minor league team, and I got called up the week after. And then I was watching with my dad, and they were getting killed, like 6-1. He goes, "Oh, these guys suck." I'm like, "Dad, you want them to suck, and maybe I get a chance to get called up." And then, like that, about 30 minutes after that game, when we watched together, we lost like 5-1 or 6-1 to Colorado. And my phone rings from our head coach. My dad goes, "There's no way." I said, "There you go. You don't want them to win unless I'm playing." That's just, that's the way it was.
But then you had a fair number of games. Like you say, it was in that sort of 260, 270 odd games in the AHL. What was it like in playing sort of the AHL, sort of drifting all over the country, a couple of different teams, getting traded? How did that feel?
The AHL is a grind. It is some big boys, some heavy boys, some tough boys, and when you get the puck, there's no room. So you get over here, obviously in England, there's bigger ice surfaces. Guys can circle. There's no circling. And when you have the puck, the D are right up on you. You have to chip it every time. It's very fine margin. Some say it's harder than the NHL because NHL has more flow and guys kind of know where they're going. AHL is just a bunch of guys trying to make it and bust through the seams and a little more staggered, I guess you can say. But yeah, that's the way it was.
And then you had some time in the East Coast as well, a little bit with Orlando. How was that little experience? And I think that year you were the All-Star games in Orlando as well.
Yeah, I got a fluky All-Star invite because we were hosting. Because the host team hosted the All-Star game and then we played against the All-Stars. So, yeah, you know what? To be honest with you, the first 3 or 4 games, I was really bitter. I was coming from NHL and the American League the year before. I started off in the American League that year, and then I got sent down, and I was pretty sour. It was my first time in going through all this, and I was like, is my career done? Who knows? I went down the first 4 games. I was kind of just moping around. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to dig myself a bigger hole here if I don't get myself out of it. So I talked to the coach. I was like, you know what? I've been horrible. I've been moody. So I'm just going to snap right out of it. I'm just going to go to work. Whatever happens, happens. So then my next 10 games, I was doing great. And I got traded to Syracuse, and I finished off in the American League with Syracuse there.
And do you think that experience is part of what gave you the attitude, like you were talking earlier about how you approached Danny and sort of said after the injury about, not worried about the power play time so much, these guys are killing it. Do you think it's partly that experience that's kind of led you to be that sort of mature player and maybe sort of got you into that leadership role as well?
Yeah, for sure. As I said, that's when I was talking about going through the waves, going through some ups and downs. Some ups, I'm in the NHL. A whole calendar year later, I'm in the East Coast, two leagues down. So that kind of takes a lot out of you, right? And that's when I kind of learned, as I said, I was moping around, and I was like, okay, I got to get myself out of this. So that's when I go back to saying I can't mope around if I'm not on the power play. Got to kind of keep working hard to get back on it. And if I'm not, then if there's an injury, then I'm the next guy kind of thing. So, yeah, I definitely think it helps. And as I said, every year a guy plays, you learn more and more. I learned even more this year than I did the following year. The past year. So, yeah, it's experience. And then I guess Danny saw that, and we had a good relationship this year, and I was happy to play for Danny.
Ed.
Yeah. I forgot to ask you about the trade because you were with the Leafs and then you got dealt to Tampa. That's like two massively different hockey markets, right? And being a Toronto boy, was that a massive kick in the teeth?
You know what? I was actually more excited to get traded for some reason because in Toronto I was living at home, which is great. I didn't have to pay rent or anything, but it didn't feel like real. It was just kind of like I'm just living at home, going and then I'm playing. And then like I felt when I was away from home, I was more focused on because I have my friends in Toronto, I have family. I was going to different functions during the season, but when I'm over in a different spot, I was just focused on hockey. And I just had, I feel like, a couple distractions when I was kind of local. And as I said, going back to people asking for tickets, like worried about, okay, this person's, I got to organize this. And like when I was in Syracuse, I didn't have to worry about that. I just played. And then when I had time together, it was with the guys in the team where if family came down, it'd be for a weekend to watch a few games or they just come and go. So I personally, looking back, I miss Toronto. It was awesome playing there and we were spoiled. Then going to Syracuse, I was just really happy to get a fresh start.
In the Elite League as well, fast forward a few years on, that Blaze team, one of the things Danny said a few years back when he first got the head coaching gig was he wanted to become like a family. And I guess with everything that happened this season, and I think it was really easy to see. Some groups, you see a group and you go, that's a good group. They've done okay. Maybe, they come 7th, 6th place. Have a good crack at the playoffs, don't win anything, but you think, okay, they were nice. But this group was special, and everybody could see that. And it must have been so cool being in a room with a group like that.
Yeah. You know what? For the most part, you're going to have a good group of guys. Every team you play for, whether you guys are in last or first, for the most part, you're going to be a good group of guys. And then it just separates, like, what teams are coming back, like, who actually wants to win or who's just kind of here just to play hockey and go home. And can't wait for this. Like, obviously, everyone's excited for the summer after the season, but it's a fine line for who actually wants to do something, like, and not just waste a year of your career, right? And I found down that stretch, like the last 20, 30 games, like we're like, guys, we can do some damage here. And we were like, we went on that run, but we were still 4th, still 5th. Like we were just clawing and clawing and clawing. Then we finally broke through to the top 2 in the standings, and we're like anything's possible. Then obviously everything shut down, right? But I think we just had a whole buy-in. Like there's always going to be a couple guys that go on their own page and do some questionable stuff or whatever. That's just, you're not going to have 22 perfect guys. But for the most part, if guys want to win and they're just willing to buy into their role, that's when you're going to have team success. And then it's all the way down from the owners, coaches, and the players. They all got to have some sort of buy-in for you guys to have success.
Yeah, man. Never before has a British guy led the league in scoring as well. So that was a real special year for Feds. And he's such a modest dude as well. We had him on here last week, the week before, and he's just so chilled.
Yeah, he's modest, but he likes when people like tell him that, hey, you scored 35 goals. You know what I mean? He's one of those, like, he likes it. He's gonna be calm, cool, and collect. But be like, hey, Feds, you had 35 goals. Yeah, I know. So like, but you know what? Unbelievable. And you saw it firsthand this year. Everything the guy touched, he scored. And even when I came in the first couple of weeks, I'm like, this guy's going to be good. Like, I didn't know he was going to put up 35 good, but he had an unbelievable year. And I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago. I was like, because he was talking about coming back to Coventry. I'm like, dude, don't put pressure on yourself to score 35 again. Like, even if you score 20, 25, like, that's a heck of a year. Like, if you score 25 goals in the English Hockey League, that's a great year. If you score 40, great. Like, don't sell yourself short, but don't be like, oh, if I don't have 35 this year, they're not going to want me. Like, just go have fun. You know what I mean? So we're, it's definitely exciting to have Feds back. I know he had a couple big offers, and he could have parted ways for sure. And he just wanted to stick with it. He had a good thing here, and he liked the guys here, and he's our go-to guy, right? So it's hard to give that up.
I'm fresh out, Stu. Have you got anything else you want to throw Dave's way while we got him?
No, just a big thanks for giving up your time, Dave, and chatting to us. Really appreciate you joining us this evening.
Yeah, no worries, guys. And as I said kind of before, I was excited here at Coventry, and then I'm actually really pumped to get back, kind of know the groundwork and stuff like that. And then, but all in all, I hope everyone's being safe back home in Coventry there, and hopefully everything washes over at some point and we can either start the season on time or maybe just a little bit delayed. So we're just waiting to hear what the next step's going to be. So I hope you guys stay safe, and then I just want to say hi to all the fans in Coventry and hope they're staying safe.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I mean, you're clearly chomping at the bit to get back. We're chomping at the bit to kind of get behind the mic as well. But first things first, guys, at home, stay safe. Don't go out unless you got to. All that stuff. I know I end these the same way, but I'm serious because I'm getting stir crazy in my house. I know you are too, Dave. So thanks for doing this again, man. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay safe. We'll talk soon.
Okay, boys. Cheers.